Before the world knew their names, before the sold-out stadiums, before the titles, the records, and the legacy, they came here, to a building in Cape Girardeau, where legends hadn't become legends yet. This is before and after Elvis and Metallica at the Arena building. When we witness historical moments, we're not always aware of their significance. Sometimes the circumstances aren't noteworthy until someone becomes a world icon. Here inside the Arena building, that's exactly what happened. Let's rewind. In 1935, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt created an agency, the Work Projects Administration. It employed and pushed millions of Americans to build infrastructure to support arts during the Great Depression. That's what led to the construction of the Arena building, which began in 1937 and was completed 2 years later. It is an Art Deco multi-purpose building used for community gatherings, including concerts for up-and-coming musicians. On July 20th, 1955, the Arena building held a concert to benefit cerebral palsy. The lineup of musicians included regional acts such as Bud Deckelman, Wanda Jackson, and Elvis Presley.
And then the stage to my left over here, that is the original stage at the Arena. That is where Elvis Presley performed back in the 1950s.
He was 20 years old and recognized from the Louisiana Hayride, a live radio show that also kick-started the careers of Hank Williams and Johnny Cash. The following year is when Elvis's name would hit the stratosphere, after signing with RCA Records and releasing hits like Heartbreak Hotel. Over the years, he would continue performing, starring in movies, TV specials, and collecting award-winning hardware. Elvis Presley would pass away in 1977, but his legacy only grew in death. Still to this day, his property is a tourist destination for travelers from all over the globe. He is easily one of the most famous performers of all time, and a small part of his journey took place right here in Cape. When Elvis performed at the Arena building, he wasn't yet the king, but to the people in that building that night, something felt different. The sound was new, the energy was undeniable, and whether they realized it or not, they weren't just watching a performance, they were witnessing the beginning of something much bigger. Because before the world fully caught on, Elvis Presley played here. And years later, it happened again. A different sound, a different generation, but the same kind of moment.
So with the Arena, when I was a kid, rock concerts would come to the Arena. Many hard rock shows, like I said before, about Metallica and Armored Saint and King Cobra and Autograph playing at the Arena. You know, there's been so many great bands like that.
When Metallica came through Cape Girardeau, they weren't yet the global force they would become. By the mid-1980s, a heavier sound was making its way across America. When Metallica arrived in Cape Girardeau during their Damage Inc. tour, they weren't coming as global icons. Not yet. The Master of Puppets album had just been released, which had caught the attention of fans beyond the underground scene. But inside the Arena building on May 24th, 1986, no one knew just how close this band was to reaching megastardom, because this tour wasn't just another run of shows. It was a turning point. A moment when a rising band proved they could command a stage and begin the climb towards global recognition. It wasn't long after that when everything would change. In 1991, Metallica released the Black Album, which debuted at #1 in several countries, sold over 16 million copies in the United States alone, and made them a household name. Throughout the years, Metallica's catalog would continue to grow and their name continued to spread. Today, they are one of the most iconic bands of all time and widely regarded as the greatest metal band ever. They have a long list of accolades, including 9 Grammy Awards and an induction to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2009. But before all of that, before the big arenas, they played in this one. 2 different nights, 2 different decades, and yet the same stage. In the 1950s, a young Elvis Presley stepped into the spotlight, bringing with him a sound and style that would change music and culture forever. Decades later, Metallica would do something similar. Louder, heavier, but just as disruptive. Elvis brought movement, Metallica brought force. Elvis shocked a generation with rhythm and style. Metallica pushed boundaries with volume and intensity. But in both moments, something happened. Not yet realized, just the beginning. And inside the Arena building, the people of Cape Girardeau were there for it, all before the world knew what was about to happen. So in conclusion, in 1935, FDR creates the Works Progress Administration, which employed millions of Americans to build infrastructure for the arts. 2 years later, the construction of the arena building begins. And 2 more years later, the construction of the arena building is complete. In 1955, Elvis performs in Cape Girardeau at the venue. In 1977, in the midst of an incredibly successful career, Elvis Presley passed away. The following decade is when the up-and-coming metal band Metallica would perform in the arena building. 4 months later, Cliff Burton would unfortunately pass away in a bus crash. 5 years later, Metallica's Black Album would release, which is around the time they become a household name. And in 2009, Metallica was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. From regional and underground fame to becoming world icons, this has been before and after Elvis and Metallica at the arena building.